Disclaimer, I may get a little bit heated in this video. And remember, this is all my opinion, and if you have a different opinion, that is entirely fine. But I am going to give you mine, and I'm not going to hold back. I used to love multiplayer games. They were my bread and butter, and I'd rotate between Call of Duty, Halo, Minecraft, World of Warcraft, RuneScape, and the like, playing these games with people from school or people I met online. But I rarely ever touch multiplayer games nowadays, and I've been noticing the past few years other people have expressed a growing disinterest with video games, saying either the medium has become stale and repetitive, or some people are just becoming apathetic. And now I've talked before about how I think this is a unique trend amongst multiplayer games. And in my opinion, when we talk about RPGs or other single-player games, a legitimate argument can be made, and I have made it, that we are in the midst of a modern golden age of gaming. But why hasn't multiplayer caught up, or at least retained my attention? What is it about the medium that can still hook the attention of millions, but just grows stale and boring for millions of others? And the discussion I'm going to have applies to my views on multiplayer as a whole, though I will be taking special interest with two games, Call of Duty and Halo. Those are my bread and butter. But what I'm talking about can be expanded to pretty much all multiplayer games nowadays. But what is it about the medium that has just lost me? Well, to me, it boils down to a singular concept that may seem simple, maybe even too simple on the surface, but dig a little bit deeper, and you can see how this singular systemic flaw in modern multiplayer design has infested the modern video game industry, unceremoniously corrupting a scene to its very core. And that singular concept can be put into two words: player agency. So sit back, grab a snack, and get comfortable, because I'm about to go in. I'm gonna need you all to let me cook for a little bit here, yeah? Because if we have any hope of correcting the course and putting sails, I was gonna say in the sails, wind in the sails, of multiplayer games, we first need to identify the problem. And why is that problem player agency? Well, before we even address that, what is player agency? And I'll be quick here. Player agency is the ability of the player to choose their own path and to make significant alterations to their own experience and guide their own path. Basically, the ability to let the player choose. Maybe the game steers you into a general direction, but the player is given enough freedom and choice to alter their experience and to individualize it to suit their personal preference. And player agency didn't die a fast death. It withered and painfully gasped for oxygen on the altar of monetization. Cross-game progression was always one of my personal favorite aspects of multiplayer games. Incremental progression, leveling up an individual rank, combined with unlocking new kit or guns or camo or armor pieces to customize my character, my account, to suit my playstyle. It made all the effort that I put in, and the XP that I farmed, felt like it was going somewhere, as if I was working towards a larger goal for a combination of personal satisfaction through cosmetic design and bragging rights through a higher rank. And we can pretend all we want. Bragging rights is important, especially when it comes to competitive games or multiplayer games. We want to show off to the world and to others the work that we put in and what we have accomplished. Remember prestiging in Call of Duty? It resets all of your progress, but you got a new emblem to brag to people. Resetting your progress at your own discretion, but it gave you the choice to farm all over again merely for bragging rights. That's player agency, because you never had to do it. You could have elected not to have prestiged and to keep all that you grinded, but if you did, and you hit that prestige me now button, you reset your progression out of your own free will to reform everything again, maybe trying new weapons this go around, all just to show the world that you played this game. Bear that general idea in mind as we continue this discussion. Let's look back to older Halo games. Games where you grinded a rank, but also through your cross-match progression, the challenges you accomplished, you unlocked additional pieces of armor to customize your spot, to make them look how you wanted them to look, not for a power gain or anything like that, but just to show off your own creative flair. It rewarded you, the player, for continuing to play the game, and for playing outside of your comfort zone. through challenges that awarded you. I guess it's technically rewarded you. This incentivized playing other modes that may be outside of your comfort zone. You may fall in love with them, or you just do the challenge and you never touch it again. You were incentivized to play more and to form your own long-term objectives if you wanted to. Not because you had to, but because you specifically wanted to. The game didn't start and end as each match began. You were always playing, always thinking about what you wanted to go for next. What you wanted to strive for. Maybe you made parties for the Vidmaster achievements to get recon armor in Halo 3, or maybe you wanted to grind up enough credits for whatever armor piece you wanted in Reach. Whether it be a particle effect on your helmet, or new shoulder pads, or a helmet, or knee pads, or whatever. You weren't just running and gunning, you were managing your account, and when you logged off, you were thinking about what you wanted to do and should do the next time you could play. What you wanted to show off to your group of friends, to the world. Remember when you used to see someone with katana in the old days of Halo 3? You knew you were up against a force of nature. Same thing with recon. It was like spotting a unicorn in the wild, and that incentivized you, the player, to go out and try and get these things. It created a cyclical loop where if you then got them, then you would inspire other people to go try it themselves. You showed off your progress and customization to your friends, and all of a sudden, your character was personalized to you. But you didn't have to. You weren't obligated to. If all you cared about was KD or winning, you could just focus on that, but you weren't forced to. You played the game to suit your needs and your own preferences. And because you could choose to do whatever you wanted, to me at least, it made me want to go do these things more than if I was forced to do them. But at some point along the line, cosmetic progression and customization was willingly sacrificed on the altar of monetization, stripped from these multiplayer games to be sold back to you as randomized loot boxes, linear battle passes, and microtransactions that removed player agency from the equation and forced you upon a linear path of progression to unlock what the game wanted you to unlock, with what the game deemed valuable enough to be free to play or behind a paywall, with little to no say from the player. Cross-game progression lost its luster as the choice by the player was removed from the equation. You just happened to unlock stuff in between games if the game deemed you worthy enough, or if you won the lottery that was a loot box. That sense of player agency shriveled up, gasping for air as it was suffocated under the colossal weight of multiplayer games trending towards becoming free-to-play experiences, as a mere justification for egregious and predatory monetization and microtransactions that ripped the very soul of these games out to sell a lesser version back to you at a premium, all while self-congratulating themselves on a job well done, and expecting praise and gratitude in return. Profit soared as apathy set in, and these practices became normalized as the years began to turn and pass from an era of multiplayer games that were complete packages that rewarded you for playing at your own pace and for choosing how you wanted to play the game, to a linear freaking railroad, where at each crossing they expected you to pay the toll. Experiences once filled to the brim with soul, agency, and heart, rendered into nothing more than live services with the sole purpose of extracting and squeezing as much money out of the dolphins and whales of the player base as possible. They could allow many people to go free to play because they knew there would be a subset of people more than willing to throw egregious amounts of money to justify the business decisions that these games and publishers made, and people readily gobbled up these experiences and soaked up the excuses since the games were free to play. And I can't blame people, because circumstances are what they are, and free to play is very enticing for many people, and I will not blame people or consumers for that. And when even games sold at a premium began to incorporate these practices, they had become so normalized that most didn't even bat an eye, so long as these microtransactions and loot boxes did not contain player power. For some reason, one that still baffles me and eludes me, cosmetics were casted off, forced to walk the proverbial plank and jump ship, willingly sacrificed to boring, derivative, uninspired garbage systems and sharks in the water that smelled blood, that sucked the very heart out of these games that we once cherished. Multiplayer games, to me at least, became stale, boring, and repetitive, serving as nothing more than spoon-feeding me gameplay experiences that felt shallow and insular, as if my last match meant nothing other than changing who I played against in the next. That feeling of striving to diversify your gameplay, to partake in various challenges, both solo and with your friends, so that you could strive towards something you wanted. Yeah, that is gone with no sign of ever returning. Funnily enough, Call of Duty is the one example I can think of at least that can still at least try and have player agency forward, customization, and progression. Call of Duty of all freaking franchises, where you can rank up individual guns or class of guns by playing the game and using them and unlocking additional camos and cosmetic accessories by doing various in-game challenges with said gun. It's not perfect by any means, but dang is it a breath of fresh air compared to something like Halo Infinite, where even the color of your Spartan was taken from the player to be sold back as cookie-cutter shaders. Yeah, remember creating your Spartan back in the day, changing the colors to your own preference? It was a small thing, but it gave a sense of individuality to your Spartan, as if you were the one behind the helmet. Gotta rip that out, because we can monetize it, and if we sell shaders, well, we can just constantly sell you different color combinations. Sure, we gave you green for free, but if you want green and yellow, yeah, you need to pay us. Blue and yellow? Now you're asking too much. That'll be another buck, if that. And you want to know when I knew Halo Infinite's multiplayer was going to suck? The second they announced it was going to be free to play. Because I knew what they meant. Hell, you may have known what they were going to do because of that title as well. It was going to be a lesser experience justified in its existence through the free-to-play tag, a boring, uninspired excuse to sell linear battle passes that forced the player to buy the progression system that lacked player agency and forced you on an on-rails system to linearly collect a bunch of tripe that you didn't care for before. You could get to your arbitrarily selected and placed piece you actually cared for instead of working to accumulate points or perform specific challenges to get what you cared for to begin with. It served as a glorified excuse to elongate player retention, to masquerade public perception that the game was more well received than it actually was, where in reality it was nothing more than a facade. A hollow husk with Halo's face duct taped onto it, failing to stand on its own 2 feet, with many core central elements inherent to a Halo experience missing from the game upon release to be added back in later much down the line to try and garner sympathy from a player base, to try and make people believe that tides were rising, to believe that the direction has changed and that Halo would be better this time. Only to be repeated game after game and poor decision after poor decision. Nothing more than a flimsy justification to try and recapture players' hearts and wallets, to squeeze more money out of the newest battle pass or microtransaction, or the newest season. And the real kick in the balls? Halo Infinite's customization is actually pretty dang cool. Putting little decals and accessories on your weapons, the wide swath of unique looking armor and pieces that you could equip to your own Spartan. Shaders suck, but if they accompanied the old school style of color selection for your Spartan, they wouldn't have been that bad. And if you could even customize vehicles and putting your own decals or accessories or little pieces and customizing various parts onto them. Do you know how cool that would have been if you could unlock these things from in-game progression or you completing unique challenges? Like if you wanted to unlock all the Scorpion accessories, you had to do certain challenges or accomplishments utilizing the Scorpion. Same with the Warthog or the Ghost or whatever. Just think of all the content that could have been in this game. All the reasons to play, the reasons to think about Halo Infinite from match to match, from time you put the controller or keyboard down to the next time you pick them up. But they were ripped out to be sold back to you, because the name Halo Infinite doesn't describe the potential of the game, it describes their ambition for how much money they could extract from the audience. And I know I talked a lot about Halo and COD this video, because those were my specialties, and where a lot of my past experience lies. So if I'm going to make an example, I can best make an example using those two games, but a lot of these points I'm bringing up can be applied to other games. The continued use of operators and heroes, with basic skins, sure, it can work for certain genres, and dang, even certain games, including an FPS, but dang, if it does not remove the heart from these games for me, as I'm forced to play someone else where I just want to play my soldier in multiplayer. Games foregoing simplistic gameplay loops to try and seem super tactical and technical and deep, whereas their technicality ends up tripping up and obscuring the gameplay loop that made people mesmerized with the game to begin with. And I'm not saying that operators and heroes are inherently bad, it's personal preference. And they work for some games that are designed around them, like Apex Legends. That is a game where the operator system, or the Legends, works because the game is built around that idea. And there's some games where they just feel like they deter from the experience, like Call of Duty, at least for me. And bear in mind, this is all just my opinion and personal preference. Many of the games I talked about today have a bunch of people that still play and enjoy the experiences, and you know what? I wish them nothing more than happy experiences and fun times. No hate or judgment from me at all. You play what brings you joy. You play what makes you happy. You do that, that's a positive experience for me. I can only tell you how I feel, and why I've grown so distant from multiplayer games in recent years. Because, funnily enough, I love Halo Infinite. The gameplay loop, crisp. I love it. It's super fun and enjoyable. But I play one match and I lose all interest, because there's nothing going from point A to point B other than a massive grind with no input from me to decide upon where my progression goes. So I've largely moved over to single-player games, as you can probably tell from the channel. Every now and then I'll dip my toe back into these kinds of games, because I still love Halo. I love the gameplay loop. I do. Every now and then, sure, it's a nice palate cleanser, but gone are the days of it being a full-course meal for me, unless significant alterations to business practices and monetization policies have been made. So I'm gonna call the video there for today. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content. And hit the bell icon to be notified when I upload and stream in the future. And leave a comment down below with your opinions and your thoughts on this. Do you agree with me? Do you feel that maybe I'm overblowing this, or it just doesn't affect you as much as it affects me? Because it's all just personal preference at the end of the day, and these issues will affect others more than others, and that's fine. But I'd love to hear your thoughts and hear your opinions and hear your perspectives. Stay safe, have a great day, go play some video games if you can, and have some fun, yeah? Go enjoy yourself. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.